be more organized, because artists and musicians are not so well organized. They're like, they keep their instruments clean and their computers clean, everything clean, but the room is a mess, everything is a mess. So be more organized with yourself, and you're gonna have time for everything.
Yeah, because for example, in terms of, being sound designers and musicians, we are not thinking on what is the sound, but also on how is it sounding. Yeah. So for example, you can record a cello in a white space, put a mic very close, but then have a stereo pair really far away, and then depending on the music part, you can change.
Well, welcome to the podcast today. Today, our guests are Alejandro and Andrés, and they are coming from Bogota, Colombia. And I'm going to try not to break into Spanish, just so everybody listening on the podcast can continue to understand us in English. But this will be my first Colombian interview. I'm excited to talk with you guys, and I love, as I've done research, I've loved what you guys have been up to with just your music style and what you've got in a, it's outside of the normal US based kind of production studio. So Alejandro and Andres, welcome. I'm excited to chat with you guys today.
How are you? Thank you very much.
Well, let's
Maybe your house here.
you know what, just to get started, let's I don't know which one of you wants to go first. I would love to have you tell a little bit about Colombia and just your growing up in music in Colombia, and just your experience and kind of just a little bit about the culture and kind of things that have done historically, because I don't know that a lot of people understand all of the really cool things that have happened, gosh, in the last 10 years in Colombia to kind of really have it progress out of where maybe you guys, it was stuck for a long time. So I want it to go.
I'll start. Well, I would say that Colombia is a very musical country, like very few countries in the world. I mean, of course, you have music elsewhere, but like Brazil, Cuba, Colombia, Southern US, the UK, Jamaica, there are some hubs with really original styles and rhythms. So, for example, cumbia is Colombian, and cumbia probably is like the biggest rhythm in all Latin America. It's part of the Caribbean. So of course we have a lot of the tropical music in our ears happening, but the truth is that Alejo, myself, and Manuel, which is our other partner, we are true rock and rollers. Actually, we got a lot of the influence from rock and roll, and I think it's through this that we ended up messing up with music and sound for film, which is what we do. And yeah, that is a bit of our background. I mean, I'm a drummer. Alejo plays the guitar, and Manuel. I mean, he's a bassist, but he's a composer. He composes music for orchestra, and yeah, that's what we do now.
Yeah. So for learning, I'm just curious, for when you were learning guitar or learning the drums, is in Colombia, is there just like normal lessons, or is it just kind of one of those things you dive in and do it? I mean, tell me your story. How did you end up learning to do music as a kid?
Yeah, well, I had a. You go ahead. You go ahead. Alejo.
Go ahead, Edmis.
All right. I had a friend. I had a good friend who played music with me. We started playing like it was Nirvana by then in the 90s. Like learning to play easy songs like Pixies influence and these type of things. And I used to sing, but I was a really bad singer. I was a kid and really bad singer. And the school where we were playing bought a drum set, and it was the first time I sat on a drum set, and I could play. I mean, it was like something natural for me. And from then on, I haven't stepped from this chair, the drum chair, and I loved it. So it was really like a gut feeling, a gut feeling. And then when I was starting to decide what I was going to do with my life, I went for music because I really didn't knew what I wanted to do. I mean, I haven't been like an academic with music. It's not my thing. For me, it's more passion and gut feeling. But I went to the university anyway, studied music, did fairly well. But I've never been too academic. But then, I mean, I've played, composed, record, produced. I had a label, and I have Latina, which is a sound post production studio. So it's all been passion and gut feeling.
Gotcha. And the studio you guys have now, I mean, it's amazing. Looking at it online, I'm like, wow, it's just a gorgeous studio. So I mean, I think it's awesome. Alejandro, how did you end up getting into the guitar? And tell us your journey of how you ended up where you are.
Well, it was almost like Andres. Since I was a little kid, I just watch a lot of rock videos and hear like a lot of rock music, punk rock, metal bands, and all that stuff. So with I started like to to try to give myself some money selling candies and all the stuff in school. And I bought my first guitar, and I learned in a very empiric way, just watching the videos, how these guys like put their fingers on it and try to understand. And I studied in a German school, and music is really important to German. So theory was like pretty good at it. So I started to learn it more. And when I entered to the university where I met Andres and Manuel, my partners, um, I profound this theory stuff, and I'm more like Andres, and I don't like it very much theory, and it was like more gut feeling and what you want to do, and yeah, that's it.
Gotcha. So if you so it sounds like you guys met in the university. If you were to rewind the clock back, 15, 20 years since you were in the university, what advice would you give yourselves? If somebody was saying, "Hey, I want to get into TV and film and be able to be doing, types of shows." If you guys are doing a lot of music for a lot of very, very cool shows for Netflix, and I know you've got the 100 Years of Solitude that's coming out that, has fantastic music. If you could rewind back to when you were in college, what advice would you give yourselves that maybe would help you fast track and, get to where you are faster?
Yeah, I would say I just want to make one thing clear. For 100 Years of Solitude, we did the sound design, all the sound
Right.
design. And we got into sound design through music. But answering your question, depending on what you want, like for example, if you want to be a performer, then I would say, yeah, stick to really understanding your abilities and expanding your abilities. But then you need to learn about the ecosystem where you're in, and then try to be smart playing your cards on that ecosystem, knowing which are the places that can get you somewhere else, or meeting the right people. I mean, relationships are very important. Learning to charge for what you do properly. This is something. But of course, you want to be a performer. The skill is king, right?
Mm-hmm.
For us, I mean, if it was I mean, answering the question on my own case, I would have mixed my music studies with something else, probably film or art or literature, something that could have given me like a broaden of the world, so I could relate my art to other languages. In my case, film and literature would have been very cool. But then, I mean, when you're young, say 18 years old, 20 years old, up to 25, I would suggest just to be free and take the time to think about who you are and what you want to be, and then getting more serious towards life. Because eventually you can do a master's degree and specialize in get a bit of experience and then deciding, So it's a matter of really being calm and thinking yourself through.
Alejandro, what advice, if you could go back and talk to yourself in college, what advice would you give yourself?
Well, I think like keep doing it, not be like so harsh with yourself. Thinking about doing everything like so really professional, and and worry about like economics and all that stuff. You have to worry, of course, but just study hard, and try to be yourself. So yeah, just keep real with your art, keep real with your music. There's there's music for everyone. So yeah, probably I should say myself that, and be more organized, because artists and musicians are not so well organized. They're like, they keep their instruments clean and their computers clean, everything clean, but the room is a mess, everything is a mess. So be more organized with yourself, and you're gonna have time for everything, because artists, well, everyone thinks like you have to be like a night owl and all that kind of stuff just for learning music, and staying up at really late, and that's not the way. That's no way to do that. Like, you have like to compromise with yourself and have a real good schedule to learn. And yeah, I think that.
I love that. Being yourself. As I talk to musicians, especially, you watch the career path of some people who maybe struggle. I think even if I look at myself, there's times where you're trying to be somebody that you're not, and I think that advice of being yourself and doing what feels right and feels good to you is always going to win. I look, you mentioned that you didn't love the theory part of college, right? That you wanted to just do what you felt. I have to smile because when I look at my university experience, so I lasted 2 days in the music department at the university.
Wow, that's a long way, man.
Yeah, I mean, I lasted 2 days and then I quit. And
That's like double from most people.
so, and it wasn't so much that I didn't want to do music. It was one of those where, essentially what I was told is that I had to spend the next 2 years studying the theory, and I'd already been writing lots of music, but I was told that you had to learn the theory and go back to, that you weren't allowed to be creative and do your music and do orchestration until I'd spent 2 years going through class learning what a half note was and, quarter notes. And I mean, in 2 days I think we made it to eighth notes to talk about it with this, and I'm just like, this is going to be
It's not
miserable,
for me.
and
I mean, of course, depending on what you want. I mean, theory can be amazing, especially harmony. Harmony is beautiful. It's beautiful. But everything needs to come from a real interest, It's like the gut feeling.
well, and I think one of the things, at least for me, I've learned theory, and I mean, I had quite a bit of theory background even before I started trying to do the classes, and they tried to rewind it back and say, "Oh, you have to go back to the basics." There's a lot of wisdom, I think, in doing the basics, but I do feel like oftentimes if you overthink things when you're doing the music, that kind of takes away from some of the discovery that can come from just listening to your gut and kind of feeling the music. That if you want to discover new ways of doing it and just the way it sounds. So I love Alejandro. I love what you're saying about being organized as well. And I'm smiling. Nobody can see my background. I'm clean on my desk where I work, and then it's like, I know where everything is, right? But I always feel better when it is clean. So that's some amazing advice. And I love what you said about being scheduled, and just to kind of trying to have some routine, some structure to your day, in order to make progress. If you're not organized, what could probably take you 1 day maybe takes you 6 weeks because you keep getting distracted. And I think that's definitely a musician trait, just with a creative brain, that we like to go different directions. And but sometimes that means, especially, I think, I mean, you guys are running a sound production studio and doing music. If you guys aren't able to stay organized and on schedule, you're not going to be doing too many more jobs at all, right? Because
And this, what you're mentioning is, I mean, we feel it. I mean, and we see the progress every day. Like we manage a team of up to 13 people, and we have a project manager, and the discussions that we have with her, how we start to manage resources, space, people, budget, time. I mean, after 2-3 months of really starting to focus on this, you'll see that eventually the results are sounding better. Yeah, you're being more to the ground. So eventually you come to a mix session and you play, and it's sounding how you wanted it to be, like from the first discussions that you were having at the beginning. So it's really a win-win.
Yeah. Well, Andres, you said something that I find interesting, and I think it's something that musicians always well, everybody struggles with this, but you said about charging for your, charging the right a fair fee. So
Yeah.
talk to me more about if you were giving yourself advice about charging for the music, or what advice would you have there, and how do you charge? How do you do that when it feels really uncomfortable to say, "Hey, I need to be paid for my time or for my music"?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's important to take into account that the ecosystem. Yeah, I was talking about this at the beginning because I'm sure that the United States has a very established music industry, and the way they work, it's totally different from how we did it in Colombia, or how we did it in Colombia, in the music industry and in the film industry, because here the industry is developing. So, I mean, not many people know. I mean, this can be a good way and a bad and a good thing and a bad thing, yeah. Because then you can take advantage of being the first to doing things right, but also people don't know what is the tariff, and maybe you create a budget and you charge, and people are like, yeah, I don't know, this is too much. So it's important to have the language and a clarity of mind to know where are you in the industry and what are you supposed to be charging, yeah, which is the number. So I would say, of course, you have a creative fee, something that you feel could be what you should earn per hour, I would say. But also, you did an investment, you did an investment in your equipments, and then you need to at least depreciate these things. So, I mean, you spend, let's say, $5,000 in your equipments, and they're going to last, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years. So you need to divide this in your working hours and add this to a fee, so that eventually, when 5 years pass by, you have new equipment. And this a lot. I mean, this works a lot for studios. I mean, instruments can last a little bit longer, or sometime longer. But understanding the resources that you're using for what you create, and your creative fee, and thinking of a tariff, and then compare this tariff to people similar to you or your aspirations, and then having a straightforward conversations about money. It's very important.
Yeah. No, I think that's that uncomfortable conversation, and I think a lot of times as a creative person, we undersell the value we bring to a project, or to whatever we're working on. I'm curious. So, Andres, you guys have done a lot of Dolby Atmos sound design. How did that? Because you guys were doing more music, I believe, with your studio, and then in the last couple of years, it kind of evolved into more, the sound. Talk more about that. I'm just curious how that happened, and what you've learned from doing that.
Well,
Thing is that
actually, oh, sorry, man. Go ahead.
no, you go Alejo, and I'll compliment.
Actually, we started, the three of us, we started music, and thanks to music, we try to explore more sound, hearing sound and watching sound, but with the ears of music. So we try to experimenting and do this like sound design, more musical, in a more musical way.
Mm-hmm.
So the Latina sound design and film scoring is starting to offer the two kind of services, but very linked through music. So Andres and I were more electroacoustical and more empiric and crazy ways. Manuel did a master's degree in Berkeley for film scoring. So he is like the head of the film scoring department. But Andres and I, we both did music for a lot of our projects and in our spare time. But yeah, so in La Music, in Latina, we make music and we make sound design. So uh, the the path going through Dolby Atmos, it is like really linked through both disciplines. You know.
Yeah, I can complement. We are doing a Netflix series right now, and we're working with a client that like very much. And we were in a mixing session last week, and eventually he said stop, and we stopped the video, and he said, what am I listening to? Like these drones, are they coming from the score or this is the sound design?" And we said, "No, in this case, this is the sound design." And he said, "Yeah, I love working with you guys because you guys intertwine the languages. So, and this is what we do. For example, when you design backgrounds for a scene, it's a very musical element. So you can start the scene, establish what you're listening to. For example, you can establish time and place, yeah, and then the scene start, and then dialogues come, and then the narrative starts to develop, and then you massage the brain of the spectator with the backgrounds. And sometimes the backgrounds, the tone of the backgrounds can become music, and the music can be composed through this feeling that the scene is starting to develop. So for us, doing sound is a total composition. It's like music of the 20th century, like getting rid of the staff and the notation rules and understanding sound in a very broad way. Like you cannot write down the sound of an engine, yeah, of a motorboat on a notation staff. I just get rid of this and start exploring and understanding sound in a very broad way, but it's also a composition.
Yeah. No, and as I've listened to some of the things the projects you guys have done, it's interesting. There's you've creatively used you've used instruments, but to make your own sound and known instruments, right? As you look at some of the projects you've done, what's some of the I guess unique instruments or the way you've played some things that stand out to you that have been really fun?
Okay. Yeah, I know that Manuel, for example, he designed. I mean, he attached some strings, metal strings, to a cello that are not in the proper way you wouldn't. I mean, he crossed the cello with metal parts, so he creates a very noisy sound, rough sound, and then he samples these instruments and creates textures with it. So it sounds like cello-ish, but then it goes into some textural elements. Other stuff is, for example, playing Colombian instruments, like string instruments, like tiple, which is a instrument from the Andes Mountains. I'm playing it with a bow. It's not supposed to be played like this. So this creates a different texture. Yeah. So it's like having the instrument, and it's an element, it's an object. Yep. And there are many things that can happen with this object and many sounds it can produce other than what they are supposed to be performed. So it's a mixture of these two that can open up a huge color palette.
Yeah. It to complement what Andrés is saying, it is not. It is only about the miking setting and the place that you're recording your instrument, right? So if you record the instrument in a very reverb stage, it's gonna sound like way different in a different position with a mic pretty far or pretty close. So you have to learn the environment and how you're gonna record this instrument or the piece that you made, and make it sound the way you like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because for example, in terms of, being sound designers and musicians, we are not thinking on what is the sound, but also on how is it sounding. Yeah. So for example, you can record a cello in a white space, put a mic very close, but then have a stereo pair really far away, and then depending on the music part, you can change how this instrument is sounding. So yeah, just having the attention to enjoying how is the sound performing.
Well, and it's not something what you guys are doing, I don't feel like is something that you can do near as well as if you just used a virtual instrument. It's just, it's one of those where you guys are dreaming it up. Really the only other place I've seen, I'm sure there's lots of people doing it, but my friend Chuck Myers, he was the lead composer on Hogwarts Legacy for the Harry Potter video game. and it was almost 6 years leading up to that as he was working on before that released. He had a 20-foot sheet of metal hanging off of the upstairs that he could play with like little rubber balls, and he'd take a cello bow or a bass bow. And when we were playing around with the sound the one night there, I had the recording and was just sharing it with my wife, and my daughter was in the room listening to me. I had her listen to it, and it was it sounded like this scary, like just terrifying screech, but it was like a musical, scary, beautiful thing. It's really hard to describe that, but my daughter actually started crying, and she goes, "Dad, I'm scared. Like, I don't like this." And I was like, "We got it. We know."
So beautiful. That sound is very abstract to talk about. Yeah, there is few language to describe sound, but it gets to you. You know, it's your feelings that are like happening.
Yeah.
Which is something that is very beautiful with sound. So exactly, I mean, we do sound design and music, and we try not to, I mean, for the spectator not to notice it. Yeah, we work like ninjas in the back.
Yep.
If it's very well done, you shouldn't notice. You should be focused on the story, focus on the narrative. So we're like massaging the brain there. If it's well done, nobody thinks of sound.
What with the Dolby, because I don't feel like a lot of people talk about the surround sound, and I even feel like a lot of the films, they have that piece available to them with the multiple speakers and all of that available, but I think it's actually rare that somebody gets it really great. Does that make sense? Where they have the tool, but I almost feel like that whether it's the music or the dialogue, I had somebody reach out to me and he said, hey, they want to do this in, with the different multiple speakers, and he's like, we don't even know how to do that. And it's interesting how few people actually understand how that works. I mean, if somebody's how do you learn to do that well? And and do people even appreciate it? You guys, I'm sure, think about it all the time, but is it something that is recognized when it's done great on projects?
Like in all sound, is not recognized. People don't. I mean, they don't think about it. Although if it's poorly done, they know. Like people are. I mean, some people think, no, I'm tone deaf and I don't listen to anything. And I mean, everybody listens to a lot. We rely on our ears for many stuff. For understanding the mood of somebody. You know the subtleties of sound, and then you get a feeling from it. But as you mentioned, for example, I like the Beatles very much, and I've listened to the remixes in Dolby Atmos of what the Beatles have done, and I absolutely hate it. I don't like it. I mean, it's not the format for it. It's 60s rock and roll. Stereo is properly fine. Even mono. It's the feeling is this.
It's like hearing the Beach Boys in stereo. It's not good. The Beach Boys should be mono.
Yeah. But there are some music that is thought in this way. For example, Dark Side of the Moon. We listened to the remastered version on the studio in the Dolby Atmos, and it's such a beautiful album. It's like, wow. I mean, there is another language, another layer to it. It's very properly mixed. I mean, and I think the Dolby Atmos stuff is not supposed to be like many stuff coming out of lots of places, and no, it can be subtle. We listened recently to Neil Young's album On the Beach, and there is a song where it's him, I mean, a banjo, some guitars playing some solos sporadically, and a guy hitting the floor with a foot, and that's it. 3 elements in Dolby Atmos, and it's so beautiful because the reverbs are in Atmos, so you feel the space, but it's nothing is moving and being crazy. Just it comes very natural, So it's like the technology becomes transparent, and it's not like you're bringing up from the technology and saying, hey, look, you can do this, you can do that. No, it's just disappearing technology, and this, I think it's a very nice approach.
Yeah,
It's much about the environment and immersiveness that like putting a whole bunch of stuff going on the top, right?
So, for example, silent scenes, like very quiet scenes, they sound amazing in Dolby Atmos. It doesn't necessarily has to be like the crazy panning action type of scenes, but subtlety.
Yeah. Well, and it's going to be interesting as time goes on. I mean, more and more people will have access to a theater or, listening space to even appreciate it. I mean, I still think there's, too many people just have their, basic TV to hear it, and it just doesn't, they're missing out, aren't they?
Well, but actually, some TVs come with Dolby Atmos, and they're like this Dolby Atmos bars. Dolby Atmos is not only like to having like a bunch of studio monitors on the roof, but it actually traduces the technology of audio into different ways. So if you hear like this, I don't know, Rocket Man of Elton John, of Billie Eilish songs in your headphones, and they're mixed in Dolby Atmos, you're gonna hear it like so well done. The mix is very immersive. So you don't have like to buy like 17 monitors, but if you have like the TV with the Dolby Atmos codec or the soundbar or a properly headset, you're gonna hear the difference in Dolby Atmos.
We add a subwoofer to that, and that's it. Just a subwoofer.
A subwoofer will help.
Gotcha. Well, I know we're getting running low on time, but one last question for each of you is, what's the best advice that you've received from someone that's helped you in your music career?
To be organized.
Be organized.
Yeah, be organized. Be organized. Yeah.
Well, probably, I think honesty is, keep it real. It sounds cliche, but I think it's very, very straightforward, and keep it real, because, music is a very sophisticated language. It's a beautiful, sophisticated language, and you need to do it with the heart, so you can pass that passion, and people feel and reverberate with this passion if you do it properly. So yeah, I think this is probably the best advice I've heard.
Love it. Awesome.
Me
Well,
too. Love it.
if people want to learn more about the studio and what you guys are doing, you guys are, you're in Colombia and you're doing a lot of work, I know, on Latin stuff, but you're doing some Netflix series. Like, you guys are working worldwide. I mean, you've got stuff that's happening all over the world, right? So it's one of those where I feel like if you're listening to this, you should really check these guys out. We're going to include a link to their studio. It's la-tina.co if you want to go check out the studio, but definitely go check it out and listen to. I would recommend, when you go to the site, be sure to watch some of the videos on there, because I loved when I was researching you guys, some of the sound on there. I mean, it's just it's really well done, like much better than a lot of stuff with that immersive. You've got a lot of suspense type of stuff on there, and I think you guys are doing it as well as most people in the world. So, I congratulate you on this, and I hope things continue to go super well for you guys.
Thank you very much. The webpage is there. Our social media is there in the webpage as well, Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn. And we're available if you want to write us down, whatever. We're happy to talk to anybody. So very welcome to Latina.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much thanks for sharing your time with us today, guys, and look forward to continuing our relationship.
For sure. Hope to see you soon, Jason. Thanks a lot.
Ciao, ciao.
Well, ciao. Have a good one. Bye.